B cubed. First, we had Build Back Better. Now we have the big, beautiful bill, which of course I call the big budget buster. And I guess the latest thing is now that the Senate, he wants it approved, by the August recess. I think these timelines are malleable, to put it mildly. And of course, you have some people in the Senate that are the Ron Johnsons, the Rand Pauls that are pushing back. Forgive me for being a little cynical here, but every time the Senate has made noises about having a spine, they've disappointed me in every way. And I think that look at the nominees, they were going to stand up to them. I think it's so bad that I also believe that Matt Gaetz, had he stayed in, would have been confirmed. So I like the tough talk, but they're invertebrates until they prove otherwise. But what are your thoughts on this whole big budget busting bill? Why don't we start with you, Kurt, the status of where things are right now?
Yeah, I feel like Congress it's like the same hell loop. A proposal gets put out there, the same people hem and haw, complain about it, they whine, they bitch, they moan, and ultimately the thing gets passed somehow. It's like we actually haven't seen any evidence truly that over a long period of time, anyone in Congress is going to, on the Republican side, is going to actually stop one of President Trump's bills from becoming law. Like that hasn't happened in a real substantive way. Sure, there are procedural skirmishes. Sure, the rule may fail on the first vote, or it may have to get to a conference between the House and Senate. But like at the end of the day, these people do the same thing. They go out there, and it's always like the same 6 or 7 members, by the way, that are always out there like, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. I'm a no vote on this, I'm a no vote on that. Well, they do the first vote, it fails. Headlines are written how embarrassing, humiliating it is for 24 hours, and then by 40 hours later, they vote it through. So I just don't see how the Republicans in Congress are going to tank the president's signature bill for his entire presidency. Like this is the one shot they have to really get anything done of this size, scope, scale, substance. They're not going to end up sabotaging it because, like I said, the things that they've already said yes to along the way are so, in my opinion, objectionable, and the unqualified people that they have greenlit to assume significant posts within this government, particularly at a time where we are in major international and economic turmoil. That just tells you like they don't really care. They're gonna say their piece so they could say they said their piece, and then ultimately they'll pass something.
So what do you think is the best case, worst case? And I mean that in terms of budget responsibility, not totally acquiescing to the president. What do you see in?
There is no best case. It's only going to be the worst case.
So what is the least worst?
There's not going to be a fiscal responsibility in any of this.
Thank you.
They're not going to balance the budget. They're not going to lower the debt. They're not going to lower the deficit. It's going to end up adding trillions of dollars to the debt and deficit over the next 10 years, and because that's what Congress does every year.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I don't believe Dave. Well, first of all, I don't want taxes. I'm like totally fine with the tax bill raising being the same. I think that I don't want my taxes to go up, to be honest with you. I don't know if you two do, but I do think from some of the other issues, Kurt's exactly right. This is their only time. So just to kind of lay the groundwork here. So the bill came out this week on the Senate side. It was pretty different than the House's on some things that was a little bit shocking. The majority leader wants to start this process next Wednesday, a week from today, and then keep the Senate in over the weekend before July 4th to get it passed. So just think about that. So he's up against a recess week, and he's up against, these senators that have been in, I think this is the 4th week, it will be the 5th week. So they're like tired of each other. And so I think you see people flip-flopping now because they'll make their point, but then they won't sink this. What I'm really surprised about what came out today was the fact that the White House said that they want the House then to pass the Senate bill, this whole bill to be done by the August recess. Mm-hmm. I felt very strongly, I still feel very strongly that if the Senate gets this done, if they really want the drama to stop, then the speaker should keep the House in next weekend and just pass it and send people home. As soon as they send people home for the July 4th recess, these members are going to get killed by constituents over Medicaid, whatever the issue is. And it's going to be a much harder vote when they come back. I mean, just from a pure political perspective, it's going to be very difficult. So we'll see how that happens. I think the speaker should leave the House in next week.
Well, it's an interesting thing, though. As far as the taxes go, we talked about this previously, but I think Trump's instincts were right when he said, let the cuts expire. Because again, this is not a tax cut. It's a tax maintenance of the same rates. And if he let the so-called tax cuts expire, we're talking about raising it from 37 to 39.6. I mean, this is a minimal tax raise. And this argument, which is so ridiculous about, if we raise taxes, it's going to curtail the job creators. I'm a small business owner. And the fact that I'm not going to hire more people because my tax rate is 39.6 as opposed to 37 is just inane. It shows how weak their argument is, that's the best one that they can put forward. So I disagree with that. I think they should let it go because it would take the wind out of so many Democratic sails. Everyone's got to pay their share. Now of course they want to cut Medicaid to give tax cuts to their billionaire buddies. So, but unfortunately in today's Republican Party, even a small tax adjustment is not possible. So we're going to have to live with it. And I think it is one of the things that, in my opinion, could hopefully sink the bill. But I don't know. What do you think, Kurt?
I mean, I just don't think anything's going to sink the bill.
I don't think anything sinks the bill.
And the reality is, though, it's like, anyone who talks about the budget and balancing it, it's like you have to, like, it is impossible. It's mathematically impossible to lower taxes.
The debt, remember before he ran the first time?
It's like you can't lower taxes, not make adjustments to entitlements, keep military spending above what it is, above baseline levels, all at the same time while having a balanced budget or being responsible for the debt. Like, that's not mathematically possible. Yeah. Like, everyone always likes to say, well, we need to get spending under control. We need to get, our debt under control, but they green light policies that make it literally impossible. And that's how like, intuitively, they're not going to sink the bill over this, because if they were really serious about getting our fiscal house in order, like, they would have the tough conversation about taxes. They would have the tough conversation about entitlements. They would be means testing Social Security. They would be means testing Medicare and Medicaid access. But, like, no politician is going to ever be willing to do that because they know it would play poorly. So we will keep, dribbling along until the bomb goes off and these things become insolvent, and then we're just going to have austerity across the board.
Kurt, that's what scares me the most, and take the politics out of this 100%. Mm-hmm. Even the changes of Medicaid that are happening right now, the Senate was going to do some Medicare changes, and then that fell like a lead balloon. But how do we ever tackle entitlements? Because politically, unless you get a Democrat and Republicans, all of them, to take the vote together.
Well, see, that
which will never happen.
Ashley, you just hit on the key. And by the way, I love it. It's like, well, we really have to cut spending, but we have to raise defense spending. We have this huge interest on the debt, and we can't cut entitlements. And the bottom line is the American people are largely responsible for this because everybody loves entitlements, and they don't care what the deficit or budget ramifications are. They want their entitlements. They feel they
don't care about tomorrow as long as they get theirs today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And where you really saw this, a good example on a more micro level is in California, where we have this huge pension liability. Is true in a lot of states, right? Because when you think about it, pensions are perfect for politicians because it's the IBG, YBG. I'll be gone, you'll be gone when the bill comes due. So you get a benefit today without a clearly defined cost in the future. And when that clearly defined cost comes in the future, someone else has to deal with it. So it's just perfect political candy, right? And sure enough, the only solution was to get some of the current retirees to agree to give up some of their benefits, even a little bit, to help current retirees. Not a chance. Don't even talk to it. Ain't gonna happen. And so this is the thing. You're like, damn it, I've paid into Social Security. I deserve it. And even I know I'm not going to need Social Security. A lot of my friends are, but they feel, hey, I've earned it. I still should get it. So that even a lot of wealthy people that can afford it don't want means testing. So I agree, it's a real morass. But the other point I would make is that Obamacare was the reason that it was such a struggle was it was the first major legislation that wasn't passed bipartisanly. Congress is so broken, we forget the way things used to work. Every major bill was bipartisan because then the parties could give each other cover, right? It's just basic politics, but you don't see that now.
Was the
You
first
only
was Bush
succeed
tax
when your
cuts?
opponents fail. Go ahead.
Was Bush tax cuts? Wasn't that done in reconciliation?
Yes, but you have to remember you had, I think, one of the great milquetoasts of all time, Max Baucus, who was the chairman of the finance committee at the time. And he said, oh, let's make it bipartisan, which of course was anathema to a lot of Democrats. But that's one of the reasons that the bill passed. But that still had, you look back, that still had a fair number of Republican votes. So I don't think they didn't need to do it through reconciliation because I can't remember if they did, but they had a lot of Democratic votes. That didn't happen at all with Obamacare, and it certainly wouldn't happen for any major legislation.
And then it just becomes so political. This is why I think that the whole process doesn't work well, because you get either bad policy or policy that becomes so toxic because it's not done by both sides.
Right.
And it becomes a political issue more than anything because it was done that way. Anyway, beating a dead horse here.
Oh, God, folks. Well, I think we're going to have to leave it at that. But one of these days, we'll have some real positive things to talk about. There are. But our note to our viewers, our next presentation, we are going to be doing a town hall where we all get together in person in Washington, D.C. on June 30th. So we very much hope you will join us for that. And it'll be nice to actually be sitting side by side with my comrades. But until then, I'm Dave Spencer, along with Ashley Davis and Kurt Bardella. Thanking you for joining us on Practically Political, and we will see you next time.
See you in DC.
Bye-bye.